But then also sometimes being at an event like this, I get home and I'm like, I don't want to go shoot anymore. I don't actually even use Photoshop unless I have to like clone something out. I see a lot of wedding photographers that now they go to a wedding and they have like, you know, shot A, shot B, shot. And we started our business wanting every couple to have something unique.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's a privilege. So let me just start by this, because maybe not everybody knows who you are. I mean, I might be wrong. Maybe everybody does.
No one knows who I am.
In case there's someone out there, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Jason Vinson. I am a wedding and documentary photographer based out of Northwest Arkansas.
Okay, that's beautiful. What do you mean by documentary?
So like 90% of what we do on a wedding day is very hands-off an approach. So we don't like pose or direct or anything like that. So it's very like photojournalistic. Mm-hmm. And then I also love just doing photojournalism type stuff as like personal projects. I shoot family documentary for other families and then as well for myself. So in quarantine, I actually started a project where I document my family for every day for 50 days straight.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Are you publishing that content?
Yeah.
Is there a separate brand for it, or how does...
No, it's just kind of all tied under the same thing. I have like, you know, like the vinsonimages.com, and then I have like a vinsonimages.com/family for family documentary stuff, but I don't promote the family documentary stuff very much. It's more just like passion project type stuff. Yeah.
What drove you to pursue that kind of work separate from weddings?
Just learning to value like real moments. And I realized that I was spending a lot of time documenting other people's moments. And so I wanted to make that a priority, like for my own family.
Mm-hmm. And let's introduce your family. You have two kids?
So I have a wife and 3 kids. So wife's name is Chasney. We have a son that is going to turn 5 in November. His name is Zayden. A daughter that is about 2.5. Her name is Riken. And then we have an 8-week-old that her name is Kaiden.
Wow, you got your hands full.
Yes.
Okay, so this is what's amazing to me. Here you are. You're living in Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
You have 3 kids. You're doing weddings. And it would seem like that's like not the most exciting narrative. It's just like, you know, if it's just that.
Yeah.
But your work is fantastic.
Thank you.
It's like it's on the level of, you know, typically the kind of work you would expect when you're meeting somebody in LA or like in New York, in big cities where they're surrounded by, you know, all sorts of culture and people where they're developing their art, and it takes them, you know, years and whatnot to kind of get to that place. And like, you're in Arkansas and you have 3 kids and
it
you
still
live on
took me years.
Like,
yeah.
So I want to dissect that a little bit and talk about, you know, this pursuit of excellence and what it means to be an artist. Mm-hmm. And I try to extract it from you in your own life. Mm-hmm. And let's start with just trying to define what is an artist.
I mean, everybody's an artist in some shape or form. It's just like, what are you creating? Like, artists are chefs cooking breakfast and stuff like that, or like moms making cool little lunches for their kids to go to school. And it's just like, what platform are you using? How public are you with it? But I mean, everyone does little things, I feel like.
Where art is
just the creation of
it's everywhere in life.
Yeah.
It could be if it's recognized as such, right? Because a lot of people go through it without seeing it as such, and then it kind of becomes mechanical, and then it stops being art in a way. But it could be art, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's even wedding photographers that, you know, you start off as artists, and then I see a lot of wedding photographers that now they go to a wedding and they have like, you know, shot A, shot B, shot C, and they go through like this list of stuff that they get. And if you look at couple A and couple B, if you look at their album, like all the images are the same. It's just like they cut and paste a different
just
different
cut and
person
paste
in
the
there.
face.
Yeah.
And like
so it might have started as art, and then it kind of just became this like
became a commodity.
This like cookie cutter cut and paste type thing.
So I mean, obviously your work is not like that.
I try.
Anybody who goes to your website, I mean, you could see just the work that you put out, at least, is really, you know, fantastic. And so what has been your journey of pursuing excellence? And the way I look at it is, you know, like everyone starts kind of in the same place. They're learning how to use a camera, learning how to use lights. And then people grow at different paces. Mm-hmm. And then some will plateau, some will turn it into a mechanical thing, and others keep pursuing the artistry of it. They pursue the craft. They're obsessed.
Yeah.
they keep learning, they keep growing.
Yeah.
And I'm always curious, what is that difference? What is causing you to keep growing?
For me, it's, we kind of talked about like couple A and couple B, and like they have them having the exact same wedding images. And we started our business wanting every couple to have something unique. Like inevitably you're going to have like the traditional picture of them like standing in front of the altar and stuff like that. But we always want there to be something that if we shot two friends' weddings and they go to each other's houses, like they're not gonna be like, oh, I have that same picture on my wall. Like we want to create something that's unique for every single couple. And even it gets hard when you shoot at the same venues over and over. And it's like, how do I create something unique at this place that I've now shot like 100 times? And so that's helped push the craft further and trying to be creative and trying to like use lighting and colors and different techniques and just something to separate it even just a little bit so that it's perfect for that couple individually.
Yeah. How many years have you been shooting weddings?
13 years and been full-time for about 5. So it was a side hustle for quite a bit.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What else did you do before?
I have my degree in mechanical engineering, and so I did that for almost 10 years. Not the actual engineering side. So I have a degree in mechanical engineering, but I work for Tyson Foods, and I basically just got hired because I had a technical degree. So that's kind of why I fell out of love with it, because I went to school for one thing, and then I was doing something completely different.
Yeah. How does that impact your photography? The fact that do you nerd out with gear?
Yeah, like I mean, I love the technical aspect of it, and I know a lot of engineers that go into photography because I feel like I can't draw and I can't paint and stuff like that, and so I feel like photography is a good medium. Like if you understand like the technicalities of it, then you can kind of figure out the lighting and composition and stuff like that. And I don't have to learn how to do brush strokes and stuff like that. Although I kind of did in Photoshop, but that's a little different, I feel like.
Yeah. Oh, Photoshop. I don't miss Photoshop.
Yeah, I don't actually even use Photoshop unless I have to like clone something out. It's rare that I'll go multiple weddings and never go into Photoshop.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of become obsolete. Well, okay. So what does it look like? So you're doing weddings. A lot of it's repeat stuff, right? I mean, the clients want like the same kind of images generally. Like they want, like you said, the altar photo, the first look, the
bride prep, groom prep.
Yeah, and you have those albums, and you have to create that, and like you're commissioned to do that. That's the expectation, and that's like understandable. But and that's satisfying to an extent, right? You're creating something valuable for them.
Yeah, and I mean that's the documentary side of it. So like there's a storytelling aspect of it, and so I want to tell their stories, and those are important moments of the story. And the goal is just to try and tell that story just a little bit more interesting than someone that was in the room.
So how do you keep it as an art though? Because like there's this tension that always exists, and I'm always fascinated to think about this and to talk about it, where artists who live, in 2022 in a capitalistic world, where everything that's commissioned has an agenda, but for true art to be art, it needs to be pure self-expression without any kind of expectations on the other side of how it's going to turn out, even really.
Yeah.
And so taking clients at any point, whether it's commercial work or a wedding photography situation. There's expectations, and I'm just curious, what does that tension look like for you, and how do you reconcile it?
Just sharing the work that I want to create as an artist and nothing else. And so there's times where a couple ask me to take a photo and it's nothing that I would ever take, and I'm happy to take it, but I'll never share it. And so
like what? Can you share an example?
I mean, like the silly photo of like the groomsmen jumping up and doing like kicking their legs out and stuff. Like that's not my style and stuff. Yeah. But if you want that, I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to share it.
Yeah.
They might share it, and which is fine. Like that's cool, and you love that photo, and I took it, but that's not the art part of it that I enjoy. And so I just make sure to always share the images that I enjoy shooting, and then that inevitably makes it so the people that hire me for what they've seen, and so then I have the freedom to do whatever it is that I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like on a wedding day, I don't get shot lists or like Pinterest boards or anything like that. Like they just bring me in and let me be free.
That's really cool. How far do you push the limits of artistry and just doing something totally off the cuff, creative, outside of the norm?
All the time.
Can you share some examples of like what does that look like at a wedding?
A lot of like adding my own light. So like firing light through a window to create like a crazy sunset look inside of a room that, it would be like this in the middle of the day where there's no interesting light, but just creating interesting light that's not actually there.
Is that what you're always thinking about, is light?
Light, but it's light inspired by composition. So it's really, in general, it's kind of like composition and moment are kind of like the driving factors. And then trying to figure out how to make the light interesting for those two things. And so in general, I'm trying to find clean compositions and then figure out how to make it so that the light is good and interesting.
How much of it's staged versus just candid, the flow of the day?
The only stuff that's candid, that's staged is just like the portrait time. So like any of like, if I'm doing like crazy lighting and like a weird composition, like reflecting the couple off of something or anything like that, like they're still doing whatever they do. I don't make them pose for it or like, oh, hold that or go back or can you do that again? It's just part of the art for me is capturing a real moment artistically and not creating a portrait out of a moment.
Yeah, and otherwise, as soon as you start staging, it just they're not models, and,
right?
They're gonna look awkward.
Yeah, and the goal, like I'm creating interesting photos, but I never want the couple to look at the photo and remember me telling them what to do to take it. I want them to remember what it felt like to be in that moment, even though it's, an artistically interesting image.
Yeah. Yeah. So outside of weddings, do you create art?
Just like the family documentary stuff that we talked about.
Music, I don't know. Do you do anything else? Like it's the
not
photo.
that, yeah, just photography. Nothing like artistically and stuff. Like, yeah, it's just photography.
So how did you grow to become recognized in the industry?
Good question. I don't know. just constantly sharing and working with people. I also write for a blog called F Stoppers.
Sure.
And then a handful of other publications, and just like I love the industry as a whole. And so even when I had like my day job at the engineering place, I was like writing articles and just being part of photography communities and sharing my work and stuff like that. And so
yeah, are you like constantly seeking to surround yourself with other creative people? Do you need that? How do you experience that? It's like artists can kind of go dry.
Yeah.
Like have seasons where you just don't feel like creating anything, and maybe it's all mechanical.
Yeah.
How do you?
I go both ways. I feel like being at an event like this inspires me to be creative and to like go shoot. But then also sometimes being at an event like this, I get home and I'm like, I don't want to go shoot anymore. Or like, you know what I mean? Like it just depends on the mood or how I took certain things or how much I've been shooting. Yeah. Like if I shoot a bunch for an event, then I might not want to, I'm not really inspired to like create on my own outside of it. But if it's an event that I didn't shoot very much, I'm just experiencing it, then I'm a little bit more inspired.
And you're also educating, right?
Yes.
To an extent.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah, just trying to teach people what I do and how I do it, and hope that they think it's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, once you've learned something and mastered something, you have knowledge now that you can pass to others, and that's really a question of scaling, right? Because at some point, almost every photographer that's ambitious, at least, comes to a point where they're like, okay, I'm doing this thing. I'm seeing my income kind of capping out at a certain point. How do I keep growing? How do I scale this? Everyone wants to make more money, and that's, great. But how does it work? Because you only have so much time, and the brand is tied to you. And generally, from what I'm seeing, there's kind of 3 different options. One is people will create like an agency and they'll hire people underneath them. 2 is like the education route, where it's usually through courses and content of sorts that they sell. And then the 3rd is like galleries and kind of more high art.
Yeah.
Kind of that channel. Are there more, or am I kind of?
Yeah, I mean, there's like the influencer route, depending on your following and what people follow you for as well.
Yeah. So you could start selling like promotional, sponsored content.
Yeah.
On your account if you grow that to be big.
Yeah.
Although Instagram's being weird, isn't it? Like they're changing all their algorithms now, and
it's always
the photo content isn't as interesting to Mark Zuckerberg anymore.
Oh yeah, no photo. It's all reels now.
So are you
So yeah,
making
adapting.
reels?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't posted one since I've been at the show, but I try and post like one a day on like during the week.
One a day.
Yeah.
Reels.
Yep.
Not stories.
Yeah, reels.
What do your reels look like?
It's basically like behind the scenes footage of like a real shoot, and then I'll cut to like the image that I got. And so you can kind of see like the real world view of it. It's like
What it takes to come up with that image.
Yeah, and maybe showing like the lighting, or if it's like a really messy, cluttered area, and how like the image was like boiled down into something a little bit more minimalistic. Yeah.
Do you have like an assistant or somebody that helps you?
I screw a GoPro into the bottom of my camera and then just hit record while I shoot.
For real?
Yeah.
That's kind of genius. And so you're always creating double content. You're like double dipping.
Yeah. The hardest part is remembering to hit record on the GoPro. I've gone like an entire wedding and I'll take a photo that I really love and I'm like, oh, I forgot to hit record. And this goes back to like not staging stuff, so I'm not going to ask them to do it again.
You should have like one of those drones that follows you, and you know what I mean? You put like a bracelet on.
Yeah.
Like
maybe soon the technology will be there and it just follow me around.
And then it uses AI to edit the content and post reels.
Just auto post
in
it.
Real
Yeah.
time. Reels in real time.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
What is that? There's a new network out called like Be Real or something like that, where you.
Yeah, that's like a movement, right? Where a bunch of people were like posting.
It was up and coming, and then last I heard, Instagram was gonna like steal a version of it, like they did with Reels,
everything.
essentially. Yeah, everything.
Everything.
Stories, yeah, everything.
Yeah, they got zucked.
Yep.
So, so when you like instruct other photographers in their use of social media, what's the right way to do social media I guess I should talk about wedding photography specifically because that's your world.
Authenticity. Like, don't be someone that you're not because it's popular in the industry. So like when TikTok started becoming really big and like it started to dip its way into Instagram, everyone was like doing the dances and like the trends and stuff like that. And that's not me. Like I try and normally go like
dances.
No, I go against the grain normally. And so just figuring out how to make it work for like you and what you value as a creator.
So what are your followers? Who are your followers on Instagram? You have a sizable audience.
Yeah, mostly other photographers, and then a handful of couples and stuff like that. But obviously, there's not a ton of people following wedding photography that
aren't wedding photographers.
Photographers unless they're like looking, or I have like most like past couples still follow me and keep up and things like that. But yeah.
So how do you get your clients now? Is it all word of mouth and?
Yeah, so we don't do any marketing. So it's either social media or SEO.
Okay, so you're playing the SEO game.
Yeah.
You're regularly creating content.
I go through spurts. Like when I have like a slow season, then I'll try and like crank out some content. But everything I try and focus on evergreen content that's like just constantly being searched.
Yeah, you have pretty good domain authority.
Yeah. I think so. I don't know. I get a good amount of traffic from it, but
yeah, no, that's cool. So is it the local SEO that's giving you results?
Local, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Did you hire an agency to figure out how that works, or?
No, I took a course. What is it called? Fuel Your Photos. There are a couple of guys that are really big with SEO, and they have like a specific within like the photography. It's just like within the photography industry, but it's not really a formula. It's just understanding like how it actually works instead of like these little like tips and tricks and hacks that don't really work.
Yeah.
And so that's helped a lot. And then I have a writer that helps me. So I'll give her like the breakdown of everything that I want and like key points and stuff like that. And then she'll go out and do a little bit more research, and then she'll write out a post, and then I'll go in and like edit and fine tune it to make it fit with like me and like the way I would talk.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, and then Instagram wise, are people finding you there, or it's just more of a photography community?
Yeah, Instagram for sure too. Yeah.
So what's the flow look like? Okay, somebody finds you on Google or Instagram. They do you send them to like a website to fill out a contact form, or or do you stay in the DMs?
It depends. So however they contact me, that's the way I go. So some people will find my contact on Google and they'll call me or text me. Sometimes they'll send me a DM or a Facebook message or an email, or sometimes they'll fill out the contact form. If they fill out the contact form, then it directs to either email or text. So whenever they fill out a contact form, I send them an email, and then I also text them at the same time.
And do you do like pre-qualifying to see if they're even, clients you want?
Yeah, I mean, I have like starting price, and I mean, when you go to my website, you know if you want me or not.
Starting price, 30,000. What are your prices?
Average is around like 5,000 for the wedding, and then I usually make like 3 to 4-ish on the back end
Of just prints,
albums,
whatever,
mostly.
Yeah. So the business side of photography is something we think about a lot here at Bloom. It's, especially for starting out photographers, they make a lot of mistakes. And I'd be curious to hear from you, like, what are the most common things you're seeing that people are doing wrong?
I mean, personally, the biggest mistake I made was spending so much time on the craft side of it and not the business side of it. Because it's very easy to because that's the part I love, is the craft side of it. And so I spent a lot of time like really dialing that in and like figuring out lighting and moment and composition and stuff like that, and just being like, the business side will kind of like figure it out, or just
make it
just shuffle through it and stuff like that. So like I went a long time where I didn't do album sales. And then when I finally learned out like a way that, and I tried to do like a handful of different ways, and it didn't feel authentic to me. That felt kind of like pushy or manipulative. And so finding an album sale process that worked well for me, that still gave a lot of potential for upsell. And that was just, I mean, the game changer, because it significantly increased revenue per wedding.
What is it in a nutshell? You have them come into your studio.
So I either do it in person, or since we do so much destination type stuff, we'll do it over Zoom. And basically I just design a ton of spreads. The max that can fit in a book is 50, and I'll design maybe 150 to 200 spreads. And together we'll just go through and like cut images, move images around, cut spreads. And the idea is just to make the book what they want, and not my version of it.
Yeah. So you have them be a part of the,
it's literally all them. I help them move everything around, but outside of the initial design, they're actually designing their own album and figuring out, like what elements of their story are important. And I'm just like a guide. So they might want to cut a spread. I'll be like, well, just make sure, like, if you want to cut that spread, that's, the only picture of the first dance, or, something like that. And so they're like, oh yeah, I don't want to cut that. And so just helping them navigate how to make the book that they want, that's going to tell their story to their, future kids and grandkids.
That's really cool. And then they upgrade it, they get a bigger one, and they get 2 of them and one for their...
all of our packages come with an album, but it only comes with 10 spreads. And so normally they're upgrading to like 50 spreads. Some I have that'll upgrade to like 100 spreads, and they'll get like a double volume book.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And then what software do you use to do your albums?
Fundy.
Yeah, that's a big one. Very cool. Yeah, I remember actually when I was back in college, my brother did wedding photography, and he hired me to design his albums because he didn't want to do it. And this was like in Photoshop without like any templates. I was sitting there like,
that sounds miserable.
Dude, it was so terrible.
Yeah.
That was some of the worst days of my life. But it's a lot of work, and it's just hard, especially when you don't know the couple. You're like trying to guess what they want, and so that's really smart that you do it that way. That makes
because some people do like they design the book and that's what you get. Some people design the book and you get like 2 revisions, and so and then that just drags out because it's a ton of like back and forth. They're like, well, put this image here, move it here, add this one, cut this one. And so you're like going through all this like email text, trying to figure out like what it is they meant. And then you send it to them, and inevitably when they email, I'm busy, so I don't get to it for a week or 2. And then I send it to them, and they don't get to it for a week or 2. And like when I tried to do that process, I had album sale stuff that would drag out for a year. And with this process, we do it, they see their images for the very first time, the same time that they do the album design. So it's like a whole like experience thing. And so by the time they get their images, their album is designed, and I'm ready to order it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you're almost doubling your revenue that way.
Yeah.
So somebody who is, say, they're booking like 10 weddings a year, right? They're starting off and they still have another job, and they want to scale wedding photography to make it full time. What are some strategies they can use to get more weddings?
To get more weddings?
Yeah.
Networking. I mean, making friends with people in the industry, making friends with other wedding photographers, like especially like so many wedding photographers I feel have this like cutthroat mentality where they don't want to be associated with other wedding photographers because they feel like there's this like competition, but there's such a divide within even just styles. And so making friends with people that, you know, if a client doesn't make sense for them, they'd be like, you know what, this person might actually be a better fit for you. So we'll get stuff like that from people, or even just people that are really busy. And if the date's booked, be like, send me that lead. And it goes both ways. If I'm booked for a weekend, I send them a lead. And so you have these like partnerships that you can grow.
So what is your lane in wedding photography? How would you describe it?
What do you mean lane?
Like your type.
My type?
Yeah.
Like
how are you different from other wedding photographers?
I mean, definitely like the stylistic aspect of it, especially in Arkansas. The majority of stuff there is the like filmy, light and airy type of vibe. And my work is definitely not that. We get hired a lot for our ability to do light and create like interesting portraits and dramatic portraits and stuff like that.
I feel like that light and airy, man, it got so saturated. Like everyone was doing that. Yeah. And every photographer's website had like super thin lines and like these light pastel colors, and you could like hardly read anything and everyone would do it. Yeah. It was just mind boggling. Like they all looked the same and there was like hardly any color. Nothing was bold. Yeah. And they still do that. I mean, I still see so many sites, and I was hoping it would be like a little peak that would just like,
it's alive and well.
Yeah, it is alive and well. It's like, hello, there's, it's interesting how everyone just kind of sees what other people are doing and they just kind of do the same.
Yeah. Because if someone's really successful with it, they feel like that's what they need to be successful. And it's the opposite. Like there's people that want something different. And so if you can supply that different aspect, like the right client will find you.
But that's scary, isn't it? Because now it's like, well, that already works. I know because he's doing it or she's doing it. But if I do something different, it's like, how do I know if anybody wants it?
I mean, it's hard to know like how many people value that or are looking for that. So, I mean, that's definitely a question that needs to be asked before you pick something.
What do you do?
I mean, for me, it helped that when I started, I had a full-time job. And so I could lean into what I love.
And you could have time to practice without needing the pressure of like, I need more weddings.
Yeah, if I don't book a wedding, then that's fine. Yeah. And so that definitely helped alleviate some of the stress about it.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting advice. If somebody's starting out to tell them, hey, don't go full time until you have found your thing.
Yeah, like for sure. Like have a very good grasp on your style and the way you like to shoot before you go full time. And there's no harm. Like everyone has this like desire to be the full-time wedding photographer. And I don't feel like there's nothing wrong with having it be like a side hustle. Mm-hmm. Like if you don't like totally despise your day job, obviously, like if you despise it, then you like work for the full-time thing, but there's no harm in having like a side hustle.
Yeah. Yeah. While you're figuring it out, it takes some time. Otherwise, as soon as you place the stress of needing to pay for, your next meal or rent, you don't have room to experiment. Mm-hmm. And art by its definition requires experimentation, right? And the freedom and the safety of like having that space. Yeah. That's for sure. What are some other like really important lessons that you've learned along your journey? I mean, I consider you as a successfully established, wedding photographer, and many want to be where you are now. Yeah. What are the things that have allowed you to get there?
Just community. I feel like one of my favorite quotes is, "If I have seen further is by standing on the shoulders of giants." Not maybe word for word. Mm-hmm. But like I've gotten to where I was because of the people that either helped grow me or answered questions or inspired me. Yeah.
So when you say community, like what did that look like? Were you part of like mastermind groups or locally in your city?
No, like online Facebook groups. I mean, I came up in the days of Flickr and stuff like that, and like just being inspired by what other people were doing and being like, how could I do that, but like just a little different?
Yeah. Where are you seeing the most active, like helpful communities now? Because Flickr is kind of
Yeah, it's
thing of
hard
the
right now.
past.
There's not much.
Yeah.
Like Facebook groups, I feel
Facebook
like are real
groups are
dead.
dying.
Instagram was a great place, but now it's dead.
Yeah.
TikTok's hard too.
It's different. It's different.
Yeah, there's the new one, or it's not new, but it's starting to come up now. The Vero.
Vero. Yeah,
Yes.
I tried it. It's kind of interesting. I mean, it's like what Instagram was.
Yeah, it's like
ultimately.
Instagram, like 5 years ago or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
It definitely has room to grow. And that's like my biggest pitfall of that network is that it's hard to find people. I feel like it's easy to connect with the people that you know, but as far as like scrolling through a feed or like finding people to follow, you have to like scroll through like hashtags and stuff like that. Like their discover type page isn't very robust.
Well, and for community to be real community, because like there's a difference between audience and community, right?
For sure. Yeah. You need to have like some like back and forth.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
and I don't know that like that format is, because ultimately it's just posting
Right.
images and people can like and comment.
Yeah.
It's the same model. You're not necessarily like, and the more it grows, the less personal it is. So it's like scaling then it's becomes self-defeating. Where it's like, what is the tribe that you belong to?
Yeah. Yeah. I think right now the best option is, events like this, finding people that have the same values and are kind of like in similar fields, making friends, and then having like the smaller Facebook groups where it's, 20, 30, 50 people where a post doesn't get lost and you can actually have like some meaningful back and forths.
But it's dependent and reliant on their algorithm too.
Not if the Facebook group is smaller. Like if it's a smaller one, then you tend to
You actually get notified.
You get notified when people post in, just because there's not a ton of people and there's not like, there's not 50 posts a day or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we'll see where things go with Facebook.
Yeah.
What else are you seeing in kind of the broader photo? I mean, you write for F-Stoppers. I assume you think about photography at a macro, level. What are other like trends and movements that are happening in the space?
Like in wedding photography.
Well, we can zoom out of wedding.
Yeah. I mean, the AI imaging is like super big right now.
Talk to me.
Like what is that? I can't remember the Mid Journey or something like that. Have you seen it? Where you can just like, you basically just go in and you type in, it's like \imagine, and you could be like, show me a red car on a street surrounded by flames with a setting sun, and you just type out a description and the AI will produce that image for you. And it's like,
It's good.
it's good. And there's even like AI portraits now where it's like, it looks like a legitimate portrait and it's not a real person. So you could describe like a person and like a scene and stuff, and it'll create this portrait out of nothing.
What's the value of that? Like replacing stock photos or?
Yeah. Like, who was it? A recent artist that I follow, just released I don't know if it was an album or just like a single, but his cover was produced in AI. And so he didn't have to hire anybody. He just had someone type it in. It came out. Just describe what the album cover was that you want. And now you can even feed it like resource images. So I can give it like a picture of my face and be like, put this face. And so you could do stuff like that as well. And you can even tell this like the style that you want. So you could be like in the form of Picasso, in the form of, and if it has to be like some sort of famous artist that the AI knows about. So you can't put in like Jason Vinson, but
in the form of Jason Vinson. Every time I try like those AI filter apps, though, I'm always disappointed. Like I'll see an ad on my Instagram and they'll be like, go from this to this. It's going to be amazing.
yeah.
I'm like, wow, download, buy. And I try it. I'm like, wow, this is garbage. Like
Yeah.
I've always been disappointed. And I stopped downloading like filter apps that use AI because I don't know. It felt like they were just like kind of gimmicky and didn't deliver.
There's a good one called Retouch for Me. And they have like different versions, and they have like a dodge and burn version and like a skin healing version. And it actually works pretty good for just like a quick retouch.
Like mobily, it's like on your phone.
No, it's it's through Photoshop. It's like a Photoshop plugin.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's like, I don't even have Photoshop anymore, but I figure every photographer. But then you have to like open Photoshop, which takes like 3 minutes.
Well, it also runs through, I think it runs through like Lightroom and Capture One. So you could like select a handful of images and you could batch them and stuff like that if you want to as well.
What else are you seeing in terms of AI in the space?
I mean, there's AI culling.
I actually saw that.
The after shoots here. Yeah.
Aftershoot.
So yeah, they have AI culling where
That's kind of amazing.
they can go through and they can like pick out the best images, or they can like, cut out like out of focus images and images where people are blinking. It's amazing for like things like family formals on a wedding, or like family shoots where, you know, you get everybody in a line smiling at the camera, and you take like 5 or 6 photos to make sure that everybody's eyes are open, and it'll go through and it'll find the one for you. So you don't have to like go through and like zoom in and look at every eyeball. Face. Yeah. It just says, this is the one.
Yeah. Well, from what I understand of this product, I'm actually quite fascinated with it. As you select photos, it learns your preferences.
Yep.
And it'll even like learn micro expressions that you like on people.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you give it data, the better it gets. And so,
yeah. So you let it do a cull, and then you go through and you can like be like, no, I don't want this one. I want this one. And you can go through, and
every
then you can,
time it's like figuring
something
something
you
else
just click
out.
a button, say learn from what I just did.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Then there's AI editing, which is good for like, not like the artistic edits, but like, you know, just like the batch editing where you just have like, you know, the snapshots of a wedding that aren't necessarily like blog worthy or portfolio worthy, but like the couple wants them and they're good images.
Do you outsource your editing?
No.
You do it all yourself?
Yep.
You like sit there in front of a computer for hours and hours and hours, and you cull yourself, or do you use the?
I use Aftershoot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Aftershoot's getting ready to release AI editing as well.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I know there's like giant factories right now that do editing, but
yeah, and so yeah, that entire industry is gonna go away.
Yeah.
Because the AI editing does it better, right? Because it doesn't have the, you know, the eye, so it knows white balance a little bit better and exposure better and all that fun stuff. And it can like match to your style. And so a lot of people that use outsource editing and stuff, like it's like close to their style, but not really. And this one you can feed the AI like 5,000-6,000 images. Be like, this is how I edit, and then it'll learn and it'll do it like that.
That's amazing. Yeah, it makes me wonder, like, does that, because that kind of technology then is also available on your phone without needing Photoshop or anything, right? And now the most recent iPhone is like, what, 48 megapixel?
Mm-hmm.
And with, you know, editing technology getting better and better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're pretty safe in the wedding space. I think people will always hire wedding photographers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
But I think, like, if somebody was going to have a birthday party, right, for their 1-year-old, like now they might be thinking, well, I'll just use our phones because they're great. I don't need to hire a photographer to do a birthday party.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that trend is probably going to continue.
Yeah. I feel like that's kind of already there. Like cell phones are good enough for, you know, milestones that you don't necessarily need. Like, what are you doing with birthday photos? You're not like printing an album in general. They're just kind of like for keepsakes. And so cell phone photos are good for things like that.
So really it's event photography that's kind of probably will suffer the most from the cell phone quality.
In terms of like birthday parties, but as far as like, you know, corporate events, weddings, like those always have like a legit photographer.
Are there new emerging like types of photography, you know, new markets that are being created with shifting landscapes?
Not that I know of. I mean,
NFTs, I guess, but kind of, I don't know, but that's different. That's very niche.
Yeah, but that's kind of we already have that, right? It's just like a different version of it. To me, NFTs are kind of like the art gallery photos.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's just a way
so it's just a different version of purchasing like a piece. Yeah.
Did you get into the NFT space much?
I'm interested. Yeah. So I was just at an event that Sony put on called Kando, and they had like a panel with a bunch of photographers that were doing NFTs, and it's interesting. It's just hard. Like the majority of my work is weddings, so I'm not going to like NFT someone's wedding photo, right? Yeah. But I have a handful of like personal projects that I've done and personal shoots and stuff where some of those could be, and so it's something I want to explore as soon as I'm not as busy this month.
Yeah. Well, so coming back to the scaling question, you also have like a community of your own, right? I don't know of any other photographer that uses Patreon.
Oh, really?
I'm
there's a handful, but yeah, not a ton do.
Not a ton. because most will produce courses that they sell. You've created like intimate communities where you're educating
Yeah.
based on like a certain package type that they purchase via Patreon.
Right.
And so it's a monthly subscription, which is really nice. You don't have to keep selling. Talk to me about that opportunity or that option. I mean, is that something you would recommend for photographers?
Yeah. I mean, if you're in the space where, people keep asking you questions or you want to be an educator and things like that, it's a good platform to produce content for people. Like for me, it was kind of content that I wanted to create anyways. I just couldn't spend that much time on it without having some sort of like income from it. Like I love explaining how I got a shot and like breaking down like how I edited a photo and things like that. And I'll share like before and afters on my Instagram, but I can't like write a big whole huge paragraph of exactly how I edited the photo for Instagram and stuff like that, because it's too time consuming. I'm not going to record a big long video just to post for free on Instagram, because it's not worth my time really, unless I'm really trying to sell like workshops and stuff like that. And even then it's still a lot of time. So it gave me an outlet to do something that I really wanted to do, and that I felt like there was people that wanted that content, and it just made it so that I could get some money out of it and make it so it was actually worth my time.
So if somebody subscribes to your Patreon, what do they get?
It's just like a post or two a month that I do. And so I'll just break down, like interesting photos, or I'll explain like a lighting technique. Like, I have a post where I walk through my entire lighting process for shooting a reception. So like how I light a reception, from the first dances to the party dancing to running around and stuff like that. And so I walk through like step by step how I do that.
That's cool. I think that's smart.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And then those are also the first people that sign up for like when I do an in-person workshop. Okay. Cause those are like small nuggets.
Yeah.
And then the in-person workshop is like the full experience.
Get real-time feedback.
Yeah.
Do you ever like bring on other photographers for educational purposes to weddings?
Like to an actual wedding?
Yeah.
No. No. Just I couldn't like talk to someone and like,
because you're in the zone.
Yeah.
When you're there, do you shoot with your wife or?
Yeah. So we started off as like a husband and wife team. And for the longest time, we like every wedding we shot, it was the two of us. And then when we had our son, she took a little step back. And so I would get like a second shooter for a handful. And then we had our daughter, and she took another step back, and then we just had another daughter. And so now she's maybe, she'll probably do maybe like one or two a year. She's just like, oh, that one sounds fun, so I'll do that.
Yeah. So what's next for you? I mean, you've kind of got it all figured out. You have a stable photo business. You got kids. You got Arkansas. You got stoppers. You got education going on. I mean, it's like
trying to actually figure it out instead of selling the lie that I have it all figured out. No, I mean, what's next for me? I'd like to do a little bit more on the education side. Like I really enjoy like this type of event where I get to like, being on stage is fun, and like walking through and like sharing what I do. And I love the little conversations outside of that where I get to actually talk with some of the students and things like that. And then some more in-person workshops. I have a handful of those coming up. And then, dialing back weddings just a little bit and doing maybe some more like senior portraits and stuff like that.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Senior portraits.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of work. I mean, because you have to scale. I guess you can charge quite a bit for senior portraits.
Yeah, there's good money in like not like the high volume senior portraits where you're taking like pictures of every kid at a school for the yearbook type thing. The actual like creative senior portraits that go in like an album and stuff like that.
So that could be a whole new revenue channel.
Yeah, and I've done a handful of them. They're really fun. There's some good money in them. I just need to spend the time to actually like, make a website and stuff like that. Like all the ones we do now are just like past clients or people that I've networked with that like my work. And they're like, do you do seniors? I was like, yeah, I love doing seniors. I just don't advertise that we do them.
No, I had no idea either. That's really cool. Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you one more question. We're going to wrap it up with this.
Okay.
Something I like to ask all of our guests, because it's always interesting to me what contrarian beliefs people have. Because those are the beliefs you have to fight for, and you probably have them for a reason. So I'm curious, what is something that you believe very strongly that most people probably disagree with you on? Maybe not most people, but most people in a certain side of wedding photography
would disagree with this. I feel like it should be like a requirement for every wedding photographer to have like a very good understanding of flash and off-camera flash. Like even if you're a natural light shooter and you love that like light and airy look, like you need to be able to produce that when the lighting scenario isn't great.
What exactly does that mean?
So like on a wedding day, like if a couple wants a sunset portrait and the timeline's running behind and you miss sunset, I feel like you need to have the skills to produce the images that they wanted. And so I can create a sunset for a couple if the sun's not there. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, and then same thing, like there's people that are amazing light and airy photographers, you know, their portraits are just out of this world beautiful, mm-hmm. but their bride prep and their groom prep and their reception photos are garbage because they can't light. And because you're stuck in a small hotel room or the basement of a chapel.
There's no light in there.
And there's no light in there at all.
Like and they're really yellow,
you
know, stained glass or something.
Yep.
And now you can't do the light and airy.
Yeah. Yeah. And they never share those photos. And I guarantee you when a couple asks for, you know, like, can you show me a full gallery? That's not the gallery they're sharing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But that's what they're going to get.
Right. And couples don't know that. And so there's a lot of, you know, natural light photographers that don't learn flash because it's either too scary or they're natural light photographers so they don't feel like they need it. But you can produce natural light looking photos with flash if you know what you're doing. And it just expands your tool belt so that you can do it all the time without limitation.
Yeah. Seems like a lot of work by yourself to be staging all that light.
Yeah, I mean, 90% of everything I do is just a single light, so it's not a ton of work. And I don't work with an assistant or anything like that. So if you go look at my work and you see like all of the lighting stuff, like some of that stuff is natural light and it just looks like I used flash, or some of it is off-camera flash, but I did it all myself. I have reels where I literally like run around on a wedding day and like sprint up hills and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, no, it's impressive because looking at your work, I assumed there was like assistants and more production going on.
No, just me.
That's amazing. Wow, really cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And sharing your journey with our listeners. And if they want to follow you and your work, what's the best place?
Unfortunately, probably Instagram. And it's Vinson_Jason. So VINSON images_Jason.
Okay. And we'll be sure to link that as well.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.